I'm Mark, and today we're going to meet the owner of a sleek Italian coupe. This car not only represents the golden era of Italian Grand Touring, but is also proof that the best classics aren't found, they're kept. Hello, Giles.
G'day, Mark. Great to meet you.
Thanks for having us. Mate, this isn't a coupe.
No, well spotted. The one you've come to look at's over here.
Wow, 124.
Yep, a 1974 Fiat 124 Sport Coupe.
Why a 124?
Well, this particular car has been in my family longer than I have. This was bought by my parents as a new car in 1974. Was brought home from the hospital in this car. I've had my nappies changed in the boot. I learnt to drive in this car. I used it as a wedding car, and I've now been able to use it to bring my own children home from the hospital.
That's amazing, yeah. To keep a car in the family that long is very, very rare. Shall we have a walk around and have a look inside as well?
Absolutely. One of the biggest ones here was the boot on the CC model. With the AC and the BC, the boot lid stopped here. It became much more practical having the boot lid come down to the bumper line.
Right, so you had a big...
Yeah, so the tail lights came across the rear panel here. Having my nappy changed in the boot, that made it a much more practical surface to be able to do that.
Just looking at the design of the car, there seems to be a lot of glass.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that you note from driving a modern car today is they have very thick A, B and C pillars. This has an amazing feeling of being open when you're driving along because the pillars are very thin, but it really does make the car feel very open.
A few other designs, you've got the bonnet vents as well, and you were saying that pushes air out of the engine bay.
Yeah, so the bonnet vents out with the larger engine. They were finding there was a bit more heat generated, so they needed to vent that. We also have these exterior vents which are unique for the CC model, again just providing a bit more airflow through the car.
So they're not just a styling cue?
No, these actually have a flap underneath them that allow air out of the interior of the car.
Right, okay. With that much glass, I suppose, you need to get some heat out.
Yeah, this car has been kept fairly original, but tinting the windows was one of the essentials for our Australian climate.
Definitely. So Giles, shall we have a look into this bonnet?
Absolutely. Give me a moment. I'll have to go around to the passenger side because it's an Italian car.
Yep.
So what we've got here is a Lampredi twin cam engine. This engine came out in the late 60s and it was still winning World Rally Championships in the early 90s, so it's the most successful engine in World Rally. I do have a lot of passion for these engines and most of my fleet have a form of this engine in one form or another.
And have you ever had the urge to sort of modernise something like electronic ignition or change anything else on it, or just keep it original?
So for this car, I guess knowing the history of it, I've tried to keep this as original as possible. It's back on its original steel wheels.
Well, 13s?
13-inch steel wheels to pretty much get it back to the condition it was delivered in. There's a couple more changes that it still needs to get back to as close as possible. My 124 Spider, that's one that I can, I guess, express a bit more about my own character, whereas this one, I guess, is more about keeping the car as original as possible.
And it's that family history that you've got with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and noting that it's been with us for this long, it would be a shame to see it get heavily modified.
So you feel more like a custodian than an owner?
Very much so.
So Giles, just noticed the twin pots for the brakes.
Yeah, so another change through the life of the coupe and the 124 series more broadly was the introduction of a dual circuit master brake cylinder. So again, another safety improvement through the life of the vehicle.
And large servo as well.
Large servo, yeah, vacuum booster. Again, another change that was brought in with the coupe model. The sedans didn't have a booster originally.
I've noticed electric fan.
Electric fan, so
original?
That was another change. Yeah, that was original
okay.
for this model. The AC coupe, the first version of the coupe, had an engine-driven fan, but then the BC and the CC had an electric fan.
Pretty advanced for the time then.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons that I guess I really sort of fell in love with these cars when I started to drive myself and got the opportunity to drive a few cars of that sort of era. Holden Geminis and the like really were nothing to compare with this.
Okay, Giles, shall we close the bonnet and have a look inside?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Why don't you jump in, Mark, and let me know what you think.
Quite a lot of space.
Yeah, they are quite spacious. I believe they had an advertising campaign in the era that you could fit 4 6-foot Italians in the car.
Right, okay. And quite a lot of gauges.
Yeah, quite a lot of information available to the driver, particularly compared with similar cars of the era.
And they're all Italian and English.
Yeah, I guess another nod to the car's origins.
And choke is down, yeah.
Yeah,
choke,
so fitted with a choke and also with a hand throttle, which could be like a rudimentary cruise control from the period. There's the ability to dim the dashboard gauges to turn them off altogether.
Fascinates me, these eyeball vents are still being used today.
Yeah, they've obviously proven that they're effective, and cars of today still use the same sort of design.
Seems strange now, but yeah, all the heater controls are right next to the handbrake.
Yeah, and that's common with the 124 Spider as well. They use the same setup. And there's a number of controls there, which also control airflow for demisting, for outside air into the car, and for heating the car.
And the Italian cars were always about driving, weren't they? Really?
Absolutely.
How they looked and how they drove was really important. It wasn't just a means of getting from A to B.
No, and these were comparatively well equipped for their time, but from a performance perspective, they really punched above their weight.
Right, Giles, shall we have a look around your garage? Because you've got quite a bit of memorabilia.
Absolutely. Jump out. Yeah, I guess one of the things you mentioned before about being involved with car shows, so I've got a lot of memorabilia that I've collected from shows that the Fiat Lancia Club have put on themselves, our involvement with the Italian Car Day, which has been a staple of the car show scene for many, many years here in Western Australia. I'll just move these out of the way. Actually, it reminds me of a story. I got asked to bring my Spider to the launch of the new 124 Spider that was released in 2017 here in Australia.
Right, okay.
And one of the briefing notes was that if you were taking the new Spider to golf, you had to put the clubs in the passenger seat because there wasn't enough room in the boot. After that briefing, I went out and showed the guy who was doing the presentation that I could actually fit not only a set of golf clubs, but also my buggy in the back of my Spider.
Right, okay. So you've obviously got a love for Fiat and Alfa. What about Italy?
A couple of years ago, we did as a family travel to Italy, and I was happy to do whatever the family wanted. The only stipulation I had was that we visited what was the old Fiat factory in Lingotto, which is now a shopping mall and a university.
Right, is that the one with the truck on the roof?
It is.
Oh, yeah, from the Italian job.
Yes, we were very fortunate when we visited. It had just snowed, and so we had quite a unique experience of being able to get up onto the track on the top of Lingotto with fresh laid snow and just surrounded by white, and also had some of the best hot chocolates I've ever had.
Talking of the Italian jobs, it looks like you've got quite a few to do.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I enjoy is working on these cars. It's a bit of therapy for me, it gives me a bit of downtime and opportunity for my subconscious to work on other things while my hands are busy, particularly as I'm now putting together a Lancia Beta as well.
And that's the one behind you?
That's the one behind me here. This is the original colour for this car. The seats that we had were out of another car, and I said to my son, well, what colour do you think the seat should be? And he went and picked correctly.
Cream, yeah, no.
And I'm like, yeah, because the door panels and the door cards and stuff are actually black. Yeah. So you just needed something to lighten the interior a bit.
So, Giles, do you want to run us through the Spider then?
Yeah, so I guess having learned the charms of the 124 Sport, I thought there's only one way you can make this thing better, and that's to take the roof off. But I wouldn't do that to a coupe. Fortunately, Fiat also created a Spider version of the 124, and this was designed by Pininfarina. They built these from around 1967 through to 1985, so nearly 20 years of production with very little change to the body. The last 10 years of that production period were pretty much exclusively sold in the US. I've had the cam box covers customised with the Fiat logo. Also got the aftermarket K&N air filters on the twin downdraft carburettors. However, I know you're actually itching to drive the 124 Sport, so let's go.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So we're heading into the traditional stomping ground of Italian cars, down to the Fremantle Cappuccino strip.
Yeah.
She'll be right at home here.
Yeah. She'll be trying to pull into every Italian cafe.
That's right.
She goes well.
Yeah. So 118 horsepower these had, and the delivery is pretty progressive through the 5-speed box, but yeah, it certainly keeps up with modern traffic.
Even a 5-speed box was way ahead of its time at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everything was a 4-speed. So you mostly use this now for the shows and that now?
Yeah, having only sort of got it back recently from my father, I'm still working on it, but yeah, getting it back to a position where it's nice and presentable, and again, representative of how it was back when it was delivered from the factory back in 1974. So
yeah, main part of that is just keeping the original colour, isn't it?
Keeping the original colour, obviously the engine configuration leaving that as was and not getting anything too crazy. I've had about half a dozen 124cc's, and this is certainly the most original that I've ever had. Getting the love from the pedestrians, that's great.
Thanks for that, Giles.
No worries.
Drives beautifully.
I'm so glad to have been able to share the experience with you and share the story of this car.
Thanks a lot.